And we're back with War Tactics to talk about the rise of the green tide, boys. Literally. So, today we're going to talk about some of the orc previews. I'm sure most of you know already, but we're going to discuss it. We're going to talk about the big hunt, which was pretty much previewed on the bat reps for Warhammer Plus TV. We're going to discuss how keywords interact and what to look out for, just in case someone wants to argue with you raw, and what is possibly intended for the future with GW and what they'll do with our detachments, and what kind of points to consider going forward, as what does it really look like for a new collector or someone that has never gone to an index to a codex to expect. How should you feel, and should you really react compared to what everybody else on the internet is doing, right? We don't want to listen to the loud minority. We want to appreciate the Great WAAAGH. So, boys, let's talk about it. Now, my little presentation a little ugly here, but I'm sure you guys already know. This is the big hunt, the detachment rule. So at the start of your command phase, select one monster vehicle or warlord unit from your opponent's army in your if your opponent does not have any of these on the field or embarked within a transport that's on the battle, you can select one character unit from your opponent's army instead. Until the start of your next phase, the enemy unit is your prey. Each time a beast snagga unit from your army declares a charge that is included as a prey, you can re-roll your charge rolls. Each time a beast snagga model from your army makes an attack that targets your prey, improve the armor penetration characteristics of -1. Now, here are a couple strats. That way you can understand how this might compound. We didn't get more strats in these because the guys in the TV app were kind of using Overwatch a lot. So, strat number one we have here, unstoppable momentum. Your charge phase, just after a beast snagga mounted unit from your army ends a charge move. That beast snagga unit, select one enemy unit within engagement range, roll 1d6 unit for a 4+, that unit suffers a mortal wound and a maximum of 6. If the enemy is your prey, roll 3 additional d6. So that's magnificent. You assured the mortal wounds in that case. And then drag it down. When fight phase, target one beast snagga unit from your army that has not been selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, melee weapons equipped by the models in your unit have sustained 1 ability. In addition, time a model in your unit makes a melee critical target from prey, a critical score unmodified hit roll of 5 instead of 6 only. Now that's pretty awesome because you're essentially getting unbridled carnage in here as well, but specifically for your prey unit, if you're running gas like they did in the Warhammer Plus E app, you could still pop the lethal plus sustain effect because Makari gives you lethal. So you can actually still get lethal, get that awesome rerolls, possibly from the Beast Snagga boys if they keep that keyword, that rule ability. And, you know, that I assume most of the datasheet rules are actually the same as in the abilities based off what I've seen in the Warhammer TV Plus. Not all of them, but the majority of them seem to be staying. Now, how do I feel about the hunt? Well, I'd say right off the rip, it might not be as enticing competitively, but I don't care. Ultimately, it looks really, really good at 1K, maybe even 1,500 points. Kill rigs look pretty awesome, pretty great. I would say one thing we noticed is that the rumors or the expectations are true that Squigghog Boy units seem to be limited to a 4-man unit where it's 3 squigs and a knob. And the Beast Boss on Squiggosaur can now be included as a leader for that unit, which also means that it seems that the Beast Snagga boss on Squiggosaur now has a 5-up feel no pain instead of a 4-up feel no pain. So that's a big deal. We don't know if he has less wounds or not, but it does seem to make sense because he's the leader. He's going to be matching the unit that he's leading. So there's that, right? One thing I would also say is the enhancement we've seen for +1 damage, sure, it looks cute on the Beast Boss on Squiggosaur, but in reality, it looks devastating on a Beast Boss on foot if he still has devastating wounds, because now you get 3 damage on devastating wounds. We know his version of a sweep profile is already damage 2, damage 3. I hope it doesn't, change in that case. So how does the Grand Hunt, the big hunt, look? We still have to see more. We still have to get a full understanding of all the data sheets and everything that can be used there, and how we can stack effects. But overall, it does seem a little less intense than we would hope, right? One thing I want to to keep in mind why I would say it's not as the top of competitive is because when you look at the start of the command phase, you select a vehicle or monster or warlord unit. Let's say the enemy just understands that, hey, you can only select the one vehicle I own or the one warlord unit that's going to sit in the back. Let's say Lord Solar Leontis, for example. Then your ability, and let's just say I'm going to leave my one remaining vehicle like an impulsor in the back and just hide, because now your detachment rule can't target my other character units. So, and that's why at a 2K game, I think competitively, a very smart person can still somewhat outmaneuver this. But if you're playing it casually with your friends or in a certain meta that has a lot of Knights or Iron Storm and such like that, you can have a great time in an escalation league and all that. So I understand why people aren't super hyped about it, but that doesn't mean it's a terrible rule by any means. And I still think there's still more to come, more to see, more strats, more enhancements. So let's still be excited and don't be dreary or weary about what is to come. Now, let's take a quick look at my previews, and I'm going to give the previews. Sorry, my previews. The previews, and I'm going to give my little small anecdote opinions. I know a lot of you guys already seen it, but let's point out some factors here, right? Mob mentality. We know that everybody gets a 5-up invuln. What I really need to see is something to stop us from being battle shocked so significantly, right? Either we can ignore it, or if we're by other mobs, we get ways to ignore battle shock, something like that. We need to actually have some protection / defense to being battle shocked with these Horde Boy units, and we need some mobility increases, whether it be enhancements or a strat that allows us to actually pressure and not just slog up the table with depending on just the wall or just the weird boy to jump, hopefully get in range with a 9-inch charge, right? Another thing I want to read here is in the final sentence, it says, in addition, each time an attack targets an orc unit from your army, if it contains 10 or more models, re-roll the saving throw of one attack. That means at least that part of the detachment rule applies to all of the 10 plus units that could be in your army list, for example, right? So a knob with a war boss or something like that, where it can actually get over the threshold, they'll actually be able to re-roll the ones too, which also makes a pain boy even more appealing, because if you ever do get under that threshold, you can bring a couple guys back and use the actual strat that they have here for bringing boys back. Where's this? Come on, lads. Then you can actually get back up into that threshold. Of course, your leader can't come back, but you can get there and try to actually take advantage of that again. That being said, something I really think about with this Green Tide, of course, we know these enhancements that they've shown here is just for one character. That's kind of cute. The Bulldozer one could be awesome because it helps the mobs get into combat. But what I want to point out here is, are we really going to have a detachment that's only the data sheet, that really only revolves around the Boyz data sheet, as in the literal Boyz? If that's so, I can live with it. It's fine. I love to ride the Green Tide. I say it all the time. But I really do need the Boyz data sheet to change, right? As in for like their ability. I can accept that all they're going to do is re-roll battle shock. That's not enough to really help us in the department of being battle shock necessarily, and it doesn't give us much value because you're not going to have 6 war bosses, for example, right? So that being said, I just want to keep that in mind on top of your heads, that look for that synergy, because that's what's going to put the strength of this detachment over the top. And at least orc units do benefit from re-rolling with saving throws of 1. So that's cool too. I'm still excited for the Green Tide. I got my boys ready to go. It's going to be one of the first ones I use, right? Now we come to one of the units. This is one of the leaks that when I heard or revealed, I wasn't very sure of, because it sounded so absurd to an extent, but it's pretty awesome, right? We have press the button, right? You press the button, you start getting hazardous. You can increase the reliability of the button effect because you take hazardous on, so you can get sustained or you can get lethal, or the criticals wounds will give you more AP, right? But we do want to say here, if we look at this first line, it says each time a mech, comma, orc walker or grot vehicle unit is selected to shoot or fight. Keep in mind it says fight. That's pretty awesome. Is that we have to keep in mind that currently the data sheets aren't very linear in understanding for maybe a newer player to understand, as in, does a grot tank still count as a grot vehicle because it has a grot keyword, but then has a vehicle keyword separate, right? And GW does have rules that they've shown, and if you look at your app, that you can look down and pull it up, that it tells you pluralizations work and that this should all still apply, but someone might start to argue this. So understand, it is very much intended that it is talking about grot and mega grot tanks, right? But something like a Killacan, for example, right now currently does not have grot vehicle keyword, right? So GW will change that, just like they gave Gaz the War Boss keyword. So keep that in mind when you're going through your book and you're looking at all the rules, what keywords are now where. I'm sure that is something that actually might change more likely than the data sheet abilities. So keep that in mind. It's actually very important. And as we're on the topic of grot tanks, what does this mean for units that are in the armor compendium, right? A lot of people are, what does that mean for my squigs or my squiggoth or my grot tanks or the mecha dread? What's going on here? It's not online. I can't find it. Does that mean GW got rid of that too? No, it does not. The armor compendium, its own thing. It has their own rules, and it still applies to our data sheets, but it doesn't get updated too often. That's why some people might not understand if it applies to grot tanks, but it does. That is clearly what's intended by GW, and therefore your models that you own that you've been using, like your Squiggoths and such, will still be around. Just because they're not in the codex itself does not mean they're gone suddenly or something. So I've seen a lot of newer players wondering that and saying that. Don't be worried. It's still very exciting. Mind you, anything you guys say in this chat, I will be getting to at the end of, more towards the end of this, when I go over a couple of points I'm going over, and then we'll go back and forth with the chat, answer any questions, extrapolate on that, because a lot of you guys will make good points, and I want to be able to address that. That way, people in the future watch this video, they can have those questions answered as well, right? Now, another thing I want to say is, when we're talking about the data sheets and such, are we just going to keep Boyz as it's the only unit that has Boyz data sheet, or will B-Snagga Boyz now adopt that keyword even though they already have the big hunt? Some people say that might be too powerful. I don't know, maybe, but it could be a lot more flavorful than just running Boyz on foot. So we'll take that going forward. As for how do I feel, or what can I advise people, is better yet what I want to say. How can I advise newer players that are transitioning from Index Hammer to Codex Hammer? And what are they thinking, right? I see the internet shaking up a lot of people getting upset, unsure where to take their collections. Like I always advise, take it to what you will love in your heart, right? What actually appeals to you as an orc warlord, a ward boss, a big mech? Because what we get right now in these 3 weeks might just change, right? GW might change the points on the codex anyways going forward, or in the future we might get an FAQ. You know, a lot of people are complaining about custodes right now not having defense to devastating wounds and mortal wounds at easy access. What if GW just changes that like they did before and go, oh, actually, we mean this, right? So however your rules are for the detachment that you're favoring, let's say you're looking at a speed wall and you're going, hey, man, none of our buggies have assault. You know, are they going to have it now? What's going on? Just understand that GW most likely will address these things, but you should still go towards what you're favoring, because rules constantly change, but your models stay forever. And I want you guys to understand that orcs, when you play orcs and you collect orcs, that is a complex collection, but it's also for the fun, right? They are a complex army because they want to just get stuck in and fight, and they are the only army that shoots on 5. So why are you so worried about what's most powerful and compounding and this and that? Don't worry about that. 6 months from now, the detachment that's deemed the worst when this is released might become the best. That's why they don't follow what the meta says. You start playing exactly what you like, get good with those data sheets in your collection, paint them up, base them up, get them battle ready, show up to an RTT and start learning the basics, because that will be of your best interest going forward with the rest of the codex. So people are worried and everything like that. Yes, you do lose Zagstruck. I'm sad about that. Zagstruck's one of my favorites. But this is just a part of playing Warhammer to a certain extent, right? GW doesn't generally take a lot away from us, but when they do, I can understand why it hurts you, because it hurt me. But do not be discouraged. Do not think, oh, I can't play this what I want to play. My whole collection is null and void because I run B-Snaggas and they're looking like the weaker version of all the other detachments. That means absolutely nothing, because how you play and how you get the most out of your units was actually going to take you the farthest as an orc player. So we have about a couple days until we can actually start seeing them. All the big channels will actually get the previews and the detachments. We can start going into what goes where and what combos. So we'll be going over the combinations of every one of these units. I'll be testing constantly and trying everything out, because I'm not going to go for what's just obviously the most powerful and most consuming with damage. I'm going to be going for, how can I stack combos? How can I stack leadership abilities? How can I get the most? For example, Gaz was deemed to be terrible. He was deemed to be garbage. People thought the B-Snagga ability made no sense. The B-Snagga boy ability made no sense when the index came out. They were like, dude, you're wounding most vehicles on 5s and 6s. Why are you just rerolling hits? This should be rerolling wounds. Man, gas sucks. He doesn't have a sweep attack. He's only T6. What's happening here? Then they started to understand, well, actually, if I pop Unbottled Carnage, I can get lethal on that and then re-roll everything, and I can kill almost anything that's a vehicle that doesn't have a 2-up plate save, right? And if you're looking at the big hunt detachment, we could still possibly, I'm not saying I know this, but we could possibly get an enhancement that ignores damage modifiers, right? You might get a strat for that. There's things that can actually and accentuate and propel our units forward and our army forward. So don't get discouraged. Don't be down. I'm actually very excited for all of it. I'm going to be trying all of it, and I'll be bringing you all the combos for that too. So just to sum it up, big hunt, maybe not the most exciting, but it still looks good if you're playing 1K, maybe even 1500. Don't be sad. Just get them lads stuck in. Beast Boss on foot looks tasty if you give him the +1 damage enhancement if he still has devastating wounds. Kill rigs are looking awesome, which is fantastic because if you're giving them -2 AP, that really makes up for their damage profiles. So that's why kill rigs are looking even more better, including they still have their Laz War Cannon Tower, right? And the Beast Boss on Squiggoths does seem to have a 5-up Feel No Pain. So what's going to happen with Maz? Keep that in mind. As for the Green Tide detachment, we need more rules for mobility. We need better ways to cover the board quickly. And it would be nice if Beast Snagga Boys somehow got involved in that. I'm not saying they will. I would understand if they didn't, but I would actually greatly appreciate that. As for Armor Compendium, Grout Tanks, Mega Tanks, all of those things are intended to work with the Dread Mob detachment rule. So GW has covered that, but if they emphasize what they mean by that, that would actually help, because then everybody could be clear and we don't have to argue with TOs about it. And any keywords that you're worried about right now, where it's going, we'll see. That's one of the first things we should all be looking for when we're looking at these previews. Where have the keywords now gone and who has what? Because that's where our combinations come from. So that could be awesome. It could even be broken, right? Because keep in mind, you can decide to go hazardous on melee and shooting. So if they throw that keyword around to mechs and you get it into boys with gas, combinations can get crazy. So with that being said, let's lead the way as the orc community. While everybody else is down and frumpy about their detachments and their codexes, we will not be that way. We will find the best way to run our codex and our armies. We will have fun doing that. We will get stuck in. And because we won't have some set, very powerful possible detachment that everyone's running, it means that no one will see us coming when we run everything we want to run. So that's what I have to say about that. Now I'm going to respond to chat. Let's see what you guys got to say, because I know a lot of you guys are very cunning, very smart, and have very good questions. So shout out to the clip. And actually, we have some super chats and everything. So I want to say Jesse Hart says, will Beast Snagga Boys get buffs in the Green Tide? Exactly what I brought up. Will they have the boys keyword, right? Maybe they won't have the 5-up inbound. But as we've seen in the second line of that, let me pull it back up anyways. In the second line of, oops, that's the wrong one. Boop, boop. Sorry, I'm going to scroll up. As we've seen in the second line of this right here, if I can zoom in a little more, just because why not? Yeah, so nice and big so I can read it. It says, in addition, each time an attack targets an orc unit from your army. Therefore, the Beast Snagga Boys might not get the 5-up invuln built in, but there's a chance that you can bring them anyways, and then they will still be able to reroll saving throws of 1. Hey, so I'm not saying they'll get the 5-up invuln, but they can possibly still get the rerolls of 1, because they could still be a mob. You put a Bane Boss in there and start regenning them and giving them Feel No Pains. That could be awesome. So good question, because, that could be overlooked. And then we have Aaron saying, preach, whoa, exactly, because Aaron was like, hey, man, you guys got to be excited because this is all good news. It is good news, because having options is always better than having one super competitive direct answer to everything, as that can get just totally nuked and nerfed, and then everybody will be sad. So it's better to have midline, possibly kind of strong detachments, and then going from there, because then GW won't see us with the nerf hammer, be like, where you guys at? Oh, right, like they did the custos. Custos. Okay. ECOP, with the 5 wall tactic gifted membership. Whoa, thank you, ECOP. I appreciate you. Very generous as always. Much love to you. I always say your name wrong, and I never forget it though, right? So if you're looking gray, you're looking like a gray Humi, go ahead and collect that so you can turn into a runt and get stuck in and grow with the Green Tide. Let me see if there's anything else going on. So let me look at what you boys got to say, because I see questions. A lot of you guys yelled WAAAGH. WAAAGH for all of you gets. Brandon, feels good to be right about leaks. It felt nice to know that I put that out there and I was confident about it, but it was also validated. That's awesome. I hate that and this is a good point. this is actually a good point. I should have brought this up earlier. The WAAAGH is still very much at the start of the battle round, and that is actually quite disappointing to me. It very much is. Now, I understand some people go, hey, you could just call the WAAAGH as a defensive ability. That's cool. Yeah, but when you're playing competitively, or if you're playing against people who are very familiar with your army, they will, if you go second, it only compounds the ever known trope of going first wins games, right? So you're now stacking that with us not getting our army a wide ability on our player turn because it's still at the start of the battle round, which means going second is even more devastating for orcs than it was, and us not having access to a knob with wall banner to continue pressure if we choose to call the knob with wall banner on our battle round. That could be very annoying in my opinion, and that was probably the one thing that I am truly disappointed about with the codex. That's probably it. So yeah, thanks for calling that out because I was going to bring it up, but thank you for reminding me. He said with the Stompa box, with the Stompa new box, I really think they're going to make him more viable and included with this detachment. I don't know because I don't trust GW to make the Stompa better, but I would appreciate if they dropped it to like 700 points or something, right? But with that being said, I hope GW doesn't just tax all of our walkers, right? I hope they don't look at our detachment rules +1 to wound and go, yeah, you know what? This could really do a lot of damage. Let me make a Death Dread 150 now. Oh my God, right? Even at 135 with these rules, a Death Dread still looks kind of pricey, right? And if you start putting kill cans even higher, that might be kind of iffy too. So I really hope that they don't just nuke us in points because our detachment rules are looking cool and good. And that's why I always say just play what you really want to play because the points can change and everything can just be flopped on its head regardless if you want. Any confirmation on who Gaz can lead, boys? Mega Knobs. Mega Knobs? No, I just seen Mega Knobs only, but he does have the Warboss keyword, so that could mean something. So keep in mind, let's look right at that, right? He said, killer cans are piloted by Gretchen. Yes, they do. Putting them in a box makes me optimistic. Absolutely. Interesting, right? So Beats Bun said, still think the double wall will be the most competitive. It's knobs, mega knobs, crump and gits. What we all have been doing all year, just better. So that's a good point because some people are actually dreary and very concerned because the first company from Space Marines is underwhelming to this max, right? Whoa, like the worst. But I find it kind of hard unless they make crazy points and very restricted on the actual unit data sheets we could use. I find it very difficult to find having 2 WAAAGH turns to be a bad thing, right? Because then you can actually pop one as the defense mechanic and then pop the second one to get stuck in. So I'm with you. I do think first hint, even in Leaks video, I said if something really does have a double wall mechanic, that's going to possibly be the most competitive right out the gate. And Beatman said, I'm excited for the Speed Freaks. Yes. Now, Speed Freaks, I've heard of cool things, and we talked about in Discord all day, every day. But keep in mind, when it was leaked, what was shown, the preview that was shown, it said buggies and trucks get the 4-up invuln. It doesn't say orc vehicles get the 4-up invuln, right? Therefore, you cannot use it. You cannot get a 4-up invuln from your battle wagon, for example. As well as when we're talking about the dread mob, you cannot use the dread mob vehicle keywords to do it on your buggies, for example, right? So they are restricted. But doesn't mean you can't bring them in the army. It just means they won't benefit from that, most likely. Let's see what else you guys got to say. Interesting. I feel like they're going to nuke my beast bosses on Squiggoths. Them not taking this anymore and just a leader, plus they pray can just stand back. Oh yeah, stand in the back. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. Just because he's not optimal in this detachment doesn't mean you can't, hopefully find a way to because remember, we still have our index detachment, which is the war tribe or war horde, right? The war horde seems to be our index detachment, just renamed and possibly reworded. So of course I could be a little wrong here, but if you still have access to Edwapa Skill Chopper and Artist Nails and he's not too nuked, you can still get him kill you with the devastating wounds or possibly give him super cyborg body if they haven't changed it too much to keep him at the 4-up feel no pain. So yes, they might not make him as directly usable and spammable or whatever it may be as he is now, but he can still be used. Just so that's why I said don't be too worked up because we don't know what the index has been converted to. It might be just the same, hopefully not worse. He says, and yeah, anything with boys in the name should be considered a boys, like burner boys, for example. Yeah, that'd be pretty sick. That would actually be quite helpful. But I can see GW wanting to limit it just so that we're not OP right off the gate. Giving just a whole bunch of dudes 5-up invulns that can actually punch you and have high OC could be detrimental in some ways to some armies, right? Losing Balrog definitely hurts. But yes, be optimistic, Devo. Absolutely. That's what I want to see. All of you guys be optimistic, because you should be happy that you can run multiple different detachments. That way, as the years go by, because we're one of the first armies to get our codex. This is actually another good point. A lot of people that, let's say you played 8th edition, right? They had Index Hammer at the start of 8th edition. People started to slowly get their books. Some people got their books right in the beginning of 8th edition, and then they had those same rules for years and years and years, but then they also started to get bored, or they started to fall down to the wayside on power creep, etc., etc. You should be happy that you have a bunch of different varieties that are somewhat viable, because if one ever gets nuked, you have something else to fall back to. If points ever change or the meta changes, you can just fall back to another detachment and kind of move along with the meta and not be so stringently stuck like other armies that are just rely on 1 or 2 detachments. Necrons, right? So that's why I'm like, you guys, just be happy, because we're lucky to already, just from the 3 we've seen, to have all 3 of them to be like, oh, I could run that. I can see how I could see that. I could run that. So be happy. That's it. I'm still looking forward to all of it. And we haven't even got the double wall the Bully Boys detachment announced. That'd be sick. I want to see Mazwag changes. Yeah, no, me too. I want to know. We all want to know what's going on with Mazrog, right? So, and actually, Greed Spun makes a good point. Squighog boys, bomb squigs plus grenade plus momentum. Bah, we just put 1 billion mortal wounds into you, more like 9, right? But for example, that's a lot of CP to get that off. So, we're gonna be CP hungry in the future, which is, kind of how we already are, right? He said, Jenk said, let's go, no grot mentalities. Let's go. Let me see what else you guys got to say. I hope Squiggoth boys can be unit of 8, not just 4, plus the Beast Boss and Squigosaur. Yeah, that would we could see that. That would be cool, right? Kind of like how you run a Burner Boy or a Luda unit for example, where you get the 4 Ludas and the Spanner, and then you can still attach a leader. So that very much could be the way, right? That could be very true. Yeah, Zag Shook is gone. A lot of different unit guys are gone. Zag is gone. Bad Rook's gone. The Not with Wall Banner's gone. But it's okay. We'll be fine. We'll be fine, guys. Don't worry. He says, how long do you think until we have released? How long do you think we have until the codex is ready for competitive play? I would say no more than, I'm hoping 4 weeks, because GW will release their points and everything. They'll make us official, and then the following week, competitive events will probably have us. So I'm gonna say 4 weeks, maybe 5 at the most. 3 if we're lucky. And yes, Beast Boss and Squigosaur can absolutely lead Squighog boys. Yes, he absolutely can. Oh yeah, and Houston Low said, I just hope the codex goes live in a reasonable amount of time frame for those of us who are buying the codex individually. Rip the Tau codex. It's almost been a month. The reason why that won't apply to us is because GW is going to release the points in 3 weeks, it seems, as well, right alongside our codex. Therefore, all our points and everything will be up to date and will be valid. So we will actually won't have to deal with that. That's a great blessing. That's another reason why you guys should be happy, right? Very happy. And yes, clan cultures are gone. And I can understand why you're sad, because I'm sad that I don't have a Blood Axe attachment, it seems, right? I'm a cunning git. What's up, man? I want to be a cunning git. Squighog boys are going to be insane. 4-man units with the bomb squig, grenade, momentum, mortal wound. See, that's what I like to see. You guys are excited. But yes, we do need to really see the data sheet abilities going forward. Okay. Ooh, yeah, it's me, Matt. Let's see what you got to say. He said, new orc player here, playing with the highest amount of points to date with 1.5k this weekend. Should I buy Gazgul Thraka before the codex releases, or should I buy some war bikers? So I always say, having something like your centerpiece, your main leader of the war, is never going to feel bad to own, right? You're going to just be happy that you have your freaking Gaz posted up in front of your army, and you'll be able to work on him and hobby him as you want. I also think his data sheet is greatly improved. Him having a sweep, but still having access to +1 to hit and +1 to wound. when he's leading a unit is fantastic, because now them sweeps are going to be +1 to wound, which is awesome, and you're just murdering Marines and such like that, getting high volume in, don't get stuck fighting guardsmen, everything like that. So Gaz is still looking great, but if you really want to run a Speed Freaks detachment, just buy a couple War Bikers, because they're usually a big factor, even though they haven't been shown, but they're usually a big factor in a Speed Freak detachment. Hoping mounted didn't get forgotten. No, I mean, we've seen in the strat, it says specifically mounted. Where does it say right here? Right here on the left. Unstoppable momentum. In your charge phase, just after a Beast Nega mounted unit ends its charge move. So that's specifically a strat just for mounted units, right? So they're not going to forget that. Keywords are changing. It seems like it's going to be a big shift and stuff. So I'd wait to see everything and make my judgment on everything. Yes, because the keywords are actually how you get your combinations in order, boys, and what strats go where. So I'm super excited. Oh, Vento, let's go. 3 month. Whoa, there we go. I appreciate it. All you gets that are now leveling up and becoming boys, getting all big, mean, and green. Let's go. You guys were all runts before. Now I see a bunch of boys in the chat. Eventually, we're going to see, I see Def Dreads in chat. You guys are looking thick. You guys are looking thick, and I mean that in a nice way. Okay. Bully Boy needs to bring back Truck Boys for the charge after they disembark. I actually heard the Truck Boys are going to be a part of the Speed WAAAGH. Another question: will hazardous stack on an already hazardous weapon? Yes, you will do it on 1s and 2s when you take your hazardous test instead. So the Morkanot, for example, right? Boom, he's gonna have to take a bunch of more. He's gonna have to be like, okay, hazardous 1 and 2s. Wah! So I love that. This the goofy account. I'm a goofy lad, so let's go. Do you see this orc codex fundamentally changing how orcs are traditionally played? No. Orcs are traditionally played as I throttle into you, devastate you as hard as I can, take over board control, and then I slowly move momentum, but I've pretty much either tabled you or I've scored enough points that you can't come back from this. You know, I don't want to spoil the Warhammer TV Plus, but that showed that even playing the Green Hunt against a not vehicle heavy army kind of still played the same way, where orcs were still putting pressure, still just throwing up points, getting killed here and there, killing just enough so they couldn't come back. That's how orcs traditionally play for every edition. They come out heavy. There's a bunch of different threat saturations. The enemy has to really delegate their resources in accordance, and then the orc player has to go, either I've baited you with this, or because you killed something a little bit more than I wanted to, I have a backup plan. And that's really how orcs always play. And that's why I say just learn the basics. Don't chase the meta. Don't chase the detachment, because playing orcs correctly, as in understanding momentum, controlling rate of attrition, unit combinations, the difference between a pile and a consolidate, those things will make bigger impacts in your game than anything else. I hope Moss stays a solo tank. Can you post the leaks again, since now we know they're real? I have leaks video, but it doesn't say anything about, I didn't have anything about Maz, but I have a leaked video where I pointed it out and I go over it right in the first couple minutes. And then, yeah, you said, I've printed a Gargantuan Squiggoth. It's huge. That's what she said. Yeah, I have 2 Gargantuan Squiggoths. I'm going to run them this weekend, as I, just in case for some reason we don't get artist nails on monsters anymore, which would be outrageous, but I'm going to run it for that reason. So it should be cool. Oh, we got a new member, Rosa. Whoa, welcome to the Great WAAAGH, boy. Let's go. I hope you become a big death dread and start crumping everybody that disrespects you. So he goes, what is your wish list for Kult of Speed detachment? I'm a little sad it didn't get a cunning detachment like Blood Axis. I'm still hopeful for some movement strats or redeployment shenanigans. Yeah, I think if anyone's going to have it for redeployment shenanigans, it's going to be the Speed WAAAGH. I think they need to give us access to Assault. Otherwise, as insinuated when it talked about here, we only get the 4-up invuln to if we're advancing somewhere right here, right? And I'm looking at this right here, guys. So it says, Kult of Speed can give their trucks and buggies a 4-up invuln save just by going extra fast. So extra fast means advancing, right? I assume it means advancing. Therefore, I need assault keywords to be thrown around everywhere. And I need the truck boys either to be a strat or an enhancement or something like that. Because and then that's where I also think we might get some redeploy shenanigans, because I doubt GW will want to give us a huge damage increase. They'll most likely, oh, sorry, I didn't show you this. This is what I meant. The Kult of Speed will be given their trucks and buggies just by going extra fast. That's what I mean by that, is that they're probably not going to want us to repeat 9th edition freebooters just shooting people off the table. So I'm assuming they're going to give us movement shenanigans more likely than not. And hopefully they give us insult. That way we can still play the board and play the mission and everything like that. So I'm into that. He said, how do you think losing sustained hits on our melee is going to affect our armies? Do you think we'll prioritize shooting a little more or maybe more utility? I think each detachment will give you that answer. As for losing sustained in melee, we've seen that you kind of can still get it in the hunt. I'm thinking Bully Boys hopefully still have a matter of that. But what I can tell you is for the past several editions that we had what was equivalent to sustained hits, which was used to be just called Goths, for example, clan, that was always very viable, always being used, and always somewhat competitive. Because just we already get a volume of attacks. We love to kill our enemies in weight of dice. Orcs are never necessarily about high damage weapons and low volume. They're never really about that. Orcs are about, I drown you in dice rolls and make you take saves. You have a 3-up save? Okay, here's 17 wounds. Okay, go ahead with your 3-up play save, please. I'll wait. That's how orcs play, right? So sustain will always be a great factor and a great help. That's why the dread mob detachment getting a sustain factor, if you just choose to do hazardous on yourself or just roll for it, is a big deal. That's why people are really excited about that, because most of our guns do have a good amount of volume. Gratanks, looking good. So yeah, I think we'll get more precise answers for that when we have each detachment rule. But overall, I'm super excited. And then he goes, my freebooters is in tatters after losing Bad Rug. No, that actually is quite disappointing. I'm sorry to hear that. But remember, you're the true war boss, not Bad Rug. So you can still be a freebooter, lad. And I remember, I'm a big Blood Axe fan. I am. Shout out to the Catachan Devils book. So yeah, but I'm a big fan of it. So I can understand why some of you guys would be disappointed in that. But the things that we're disappointed in are very minor, guys, compared to what other armies are dealing with, or other, factions are dealing with. Be happy you're not Dark Angels. For the Grot Revolution, let's go. Okay, you Grots. Oh, he said, and he also said, not sure if this has been discussed, but Grot battle line for Dread Mob, saw it on Reddit. Ooh, Reddit, let's go. I don't know. I didn't see that, but that would be quite interesting. That would make that even more appealing in many ways. Yeah, that can make it quite appealing, because now you're just countering, like, hey, I got all this chaff to get in the way. I can still play the mission. I can still run up the table with Great OC. And they're pretty cheap. So you can bring, if the walkers do become kind of at a premium, then the Grots help you with that. So I think we covered most of what's been asked in questions. So if you guys, I'm about to close out. So if you guys have any more questions, throw them in real quick. But we will know the future soon, lads. Be aware that other big channels, not mine, big proper channels, will have the codex released earlier. But a lot of those channels do like to play a bit more fluffy and not necessarily the most competitive. So even if you see them losing a battle report, or the combination doesn't look the most powerful, it might be that those guys just played with what they wanted to play with and didn't want to get too complex. Also, if you're used to playing the index detachment, understand that it's most likely still going to be there and still be very similar to what it was, like with the Tyranids. And look out for keywords. Understand that the Grot tanks, an example, are truly intended, but keywords would definitely matter. What will go where, and who can go lead with who in combinations, right? Like I said, when we're talking about the green tie detachment, it doesn't seem like, well, Deepest Snaggle Boys will absolutely not to get the 5-up invuln currently, but they can possibly still, well, they most likely still will get the reroll saving throws of 1. So having a pain boss in there for a 5-up feel no pain can still feel really good. Then you take them out and you throw them up the field on the wall turn, and they get the 5-up invuln, and they're essentially still acting like normal boys. So that's why all of these things need to be accounted for, not just a Twitch reaction as to what is this. Don't be drowned in what the comments say or the internet say. Just get feedback from your fellow orc players. A lot of people are more casual and maybe newer players, or only semi-competitive players, and they're usually a bit more grounded in the fact that they're not going to over emotionally react unless they've heavily invested hobby time, right? So just try to, you know, the world's not black and white, it's truly gray. And so that's why we just take everything in, be happy to have the different detachment rules, and then find what suits you as a player and your collection. Get good with that, because 6 months from now, it might become the meta detachment. So that's my true advice, is play what you want to play, because it just might happen to become the meta. The meta. Are you excited to try out the Big Mac? Is he worth to buy the Stompa bundle? If I just want the Big Mac, I do not have a Stompa. I would say, well, first of all, if you don't have a Stompa, then get that box, because owning a Stompa is a rite of passage as an orc player. When you just have the Stompa, you feel like a great war boss, right? And it's a great value right now. So even if it's not meta, just go ahead and get it, right? As for would I get the box just for the Big Mac? No, that's not what I would necessarily advise. As for his rules right now, I don't actually love his rules. Low volume and high value, like I said, isn't what orcs necessarily like. So having just one shot that doesn't hit is weird. And then the fact that he wants to shoot, but he just gives rerolls, I just don't see the synergy yet. But that doesn't mean anything, because his data sheet could be changed in the codex. And if he can lead, for example, killicans and then give them reroll advances or something and run through terrain or something, that'd be fantastic. So I would say don't buy it just for that, because I never advise chasing a meta or chasing a strong data sheet. Just getting some of it always feels better. You get a little bit of everything as an orc player, it benefits you a little better anyways as your collection. And then he says, Big Mech plus knobs fallback through enemy units and move, block them to get stuck in. Yeah, now you're sandwiched. Ooh. I hope we know everything soon. My pile of shame is almost empty and I want to buy more WAAAGH. That's fantastic. He goes, and then Brandon, shout out to Brandon. Thanks for bringing positive energy and fostering such a good community with that attitude. I reflect you gets, right? I think in general, I'm just reflecting the orc community as a whole, not the competitive community, because this isn't necessarily a competitive channel, guys. I promise you it's not. This is a orc channel. It's all about the hobbying. It's all about the list building. It's all about being creative and unique. That's how we got a lot of our combinations that were kind of shoved to the wayside. If you guys remember the beginning of the edition, people hated gas. People hated the Feel No Pain enhancement. People hated the knob with wall banner. People didn't appreciate knobs with power claws. I can go on. Yet here we are in the future, and in the future it is green and mean, and that's what we're here for. Oh, and actually, he just said the world is green. Fantastic. The world is green. I like how you shouted that out. And yeah, the future is 2 Gargantuan Squiggoths, which I do own, and I'm excited. So let's go. So I'll end it off there, boys. I appreciate you. Be excited. We have a couple more days, and then from there, we're going to be sticking our noses in and just getting stuck in. It's going to be fantastic, right? But there's always one thing to keep in mind, is don't cross our wall, because we'll knock your teeth out. Whoa.